Freeloader landed just as Eric lifted his glass. His mother stood beneath the arch between our kitchen and dining room, one hand around a sweating gin and tonic, the other aimed at me like she'd discovered the evening's entertainment. "At our housewarming," Darlene said. "In the house my son worked himself sick to give you. The least you could do is refill the ice." A few people laughed uncertainly. Eric laughed for real. When I looked at him, he tipped his glass toward me. "You should be grateful, Naomi. Mom's saying what everybody else is too polite to say." I had paid for every roof repair myself. Eric knew that. The first deposit, the ruined decking, the second emergency invoice, every dollar. The doorbell rang before I could answer. A courier stood outside holding a rigid white envelope stamped Calder Roofing Exteriors. "Naomi Calder. I need her signature." Darlene reached past me. "I'll take it," she said quickly. "It concerns my room." For one strange second, the room behind me went quiet enough that I could hear rain ticking against the copper gutter. The courier pulled the envelope back. "I can only release it to Naomi. That's me." I held out my hand. Darlene smiled as if we were sharing a joke, though something in her face had tightened. "He means the homeowner, honey." "I am the homeowner." The courier checked his tablet. "Photo ID?" My wallet was on the narrow entry table beside the chipped blue mixing bowl where we kept our keys. I reached around Eric's car fob, my brass house key, and a silver key I didn't recognize. The bowl rocked against the wood with a familiar ceramic scrape. Eric came up behind me. "What is it?" "Roof closeout packet," the courier said. "Corrected warranty and payment record. There was a contact dispute, so the office sent its signature required." Eric stopped smiling. I showed my license, signed the screen, and took the envelope. It was heavier than paper should have been. Darlene hovered near my elbow, close enough for the perfume on her wrists to cut through the smell of wet coats and baked cheese. "You can deal with that Monday," she said. "People are waiting." "For ice?" I asked. Eric gave me the small warning look he usually reserved for caterers about to carry red wine over white carpet. "Naomi." I turned back toward the party. Around 30 people had fitted themselves into rooms that had felt enormous when they were empty. Eric's business partner, Malcolm, inspected the label on a bottle as if it were written in code. My former supervisor, Celia, had become intensely interested in the framed print above the sofa. Darlene's cousin, Paul, stood with an olive suspended halfway to his mouth. Nobody knew where to put their eyes. So I opened the envelope. The first page was a warranty certificate. The second was a paid invoice for $41,860.22. My name appeared under customer and property owner. The payment line listed the final 4 digits of my checking account. Behind it were color photographs of the roof, a ventilation report, and a letter clipped to a yellow form. Darlene reached again. "Those are private. They're addressed to me. I mean private from a business standpoint." "What business?" Eric touched the back of my arm. His fingers were warm and firm. "Put it away." I read the first line. "Dear Ms. Calder, we are unable to process the requested change designating Ms. Darlene Pierce as resident warranty contact and authorized approver for structural modifications. Rainwater ran from the courier's jacket onto the threshold." He glanced down at it. "I should go," he said. "Probably," I told him. He gave me the cautious nod of a man escaping a room where a vase had started falling but hadn't hit the floor yet. I shut the door behind him. Darlene took a drink. "Well, that was unnecessarily theatrical." "You reached for it." "I was trying to help." "How does my roof warranty concern your room?" Someone in the dining room set down a glass too hard. Eric stepped between us, not dramatically. He did it with the smooth reflex of someone rearranging a buffet line. "This isn't the time." Darlene's laugh came out thin. "I misspoke. I meant the room you showed me, the lovely glass room." "My studio." "Yes, your studio." She smiled at Celia, who had given up pretending not to listen. "Naomi works from home now. The way she said works made it sound like I folded napkins for tips. 6 months earlier, I had left a facilities management firm after 12 years of estimating repairs for hospitals, office parks, and distribution centers. I now did the same work independently from the glassed-in room upstairs, where sunlight hit 3 walls and turned my computer screen into a mirror by noon. My first quarter had been lean. My second had brought 2 contracts worth more than my old salary. Eric knew that, too. Darlene set her empty glass on the entry table. Are we going to let paperwork ruin the whole night? I looked at Eric. He looked toward the kitchen where the ice bucket sat empty beside 3 warm bottles of sparkling water. I'll get it, Malcolm said. I've got it. Eric hurried after him. That was how my husband answered me. The party survived another 43 minutes. I know because the microwave clock read 9:12 when the courier arrived and 9:55 when Paul asked Darlene whether she wanted him to bring her coat. People found reasons to leave in pairs. The rain was getting worse. Monday came early. A dog needed medication. Celia hugged me with one arm and whispered, "Call me," in a tone that made it clear she didn't mean about consulting work. Darlene refused her coat. "I'll help straighten," she said. "You're a guest," I told her. "Family isn't company." She began collecting glasses before I could stop her. She carried them into the kitchen, opened the dishwasher, and frowned at the loaded top rack. "You put the wine stems in here?" "They're dishwasher safe." "Technically, maybe." Eric began scraping food into the trash. His sleeves were rolled to the forearms. He'd worn the blue shirt I bought him for our anniversary because Darlene once said it made his shoulders look executive. There were details I had dismissed individually that suddenly seemed arranged. I slid the warranty papers back into their envelope. Darlene watched. "You should keep those in the upstairs file cabinet." "I haven't decided where I'm keeping them." "That's where the house documents are." "My house documents are in the locking drawer downstairs." She looked at Eric. He dropped a pastry shell into the trash and pressed the pedal harder than necessary. Malcolm came in carrying a tub of melting ice. He was a broad, soft-spoken man who could discuss smoked paprika for 20 minutes but treated every personal question like an armed device. "Where do you want this?" he asked. "Sink," Eric said. Malcolm dumped it, then paused beside me. "Good party, was it?" "The mushrooms were good. I made those." He closed his eyes briefly. "Of course you did." Darlene began laughing. It started as a little hiccup and grew until she had to brace herself on the counter. For a second, against my will, I nearly laughed too. Malcolm had that effect. He opened his mouth and entire rooms wandered into traffic. Eric did not laugh. "Go home, Mal." Excellent plan. When the door shut behind him, I took the silver key from the blue bowl. It was newly cut, its teeth still bright. A square of green nail polish marked the round head. "What does this open?" Darlene busied herself wiping a spotless section of counter. Eric tied the trash bag. "What does it open?" I asked again. "The side door," Darlene said, "since you've apparently decided tonight is an interrogation." I looked at Eric. "You gave her a key?" "She already had one." "No, she had a code. The keypad sticks. It stuck once during a freeze." "And what if there's an emergency?" Darlene asked. "What if you're away and a pipe bursts? What if Eric gets locked out?" "Then Eric calls me." She wiped harder. "That's not much of a system." "It's my system." "Our system," Eric said quietly. There it was, not defense, not apology. A correction aimed at me. I set the key on the invoice. "Did you authorize the warranty change?" He picked up the trash bag and carried it to the mudroom. "Mom, give us a minute. I'm involved now." "You made yourself involved," I said. Darlene's mouth flattened. She folded the dishcloth with careful, pinching movements and laid it beside the sink. "I was asked." "By whom?" Eric returned without the bag. I said, "Give us a minute." The sharpness in his voice surprised all 3 of us. Darlene looked wounded, then seemed to remember she had an audience of only me and decided the expression wasn't useful. She took her purse from a dining chair. Fine, I know when I'm unwanted. You called me a freeloader in my own kitchen. I made a joke. You said what everybody could see, I replied. That was Eric's explanation. Her gaze shifted to him. He rubbed both hands over his face. Can we stop repeating it? Correct it then. What? The party was full of people you work with, people I work with, your family. Call them tomorrow and tell them the truth. Darlene made a small sound of disbelief. You want him to telephone 30 people and announce what you paid for your roof? Our roof, Eric said automatically. Interesting, I said. It became ours again, fast. His hands fell to his sides. What do you want from me right now? The truth would be a fun change. Don't talk to him like that, Darlene said. Eric shut his eyes. Mom, please go. She stared at him, genuinely stunned. Darlene was accustomed to Eric softening every door before it closed on her. He walked her to the entry and held out her coat. She put it on slowly. I gave notice because you asked me to, she said to him. The house went still. Eric looked at me, then down at the zipper he was trying to join. Notice for what? I asked. Darlene took the zipper from his hands. My lease. You said it renewed in January. It does. It would have. She zipped her coat. I had to give 60 days. The rain struck the front windows in gusts. In the blue bowl, Eric's car fob shifted and settled as the table vibrated beneath Darlene's purse. I held up the roofing company's letter. When were you going to tell me? Darlene answered for him. Once the room was ready. My studio? You have a laptop, Naomi. You can work anywhere. Eric leaned against the door. She'd only be here 6 weeks. Darlene turned. We never agreed to 6. You said you'd look for another place. I said we'd see how it went. They looked at each other, and I understood they had argued about this before, not whether she was coming, how long she would stay. I thought of the fabric swatches Darlene had spread across my desk 2 Sundays ago, supposedly for new curtains in her apartment. I thought of Eric measuring the wall beside the studio closet and telling me Malcolm wanted dimensions for a catering shelf. I thought of the cardboard boxes stacked behind the lawnmower in our garage, each one labeled DP in black marker. Darlene had said they were donations for a church resale shop. How long have you two been planning this? We haven't been planning, Eric said. We've been trying to solve a problem. Without me. Because you react exactly like this. I laughed once. I couldn't help it. You're right. Finding out your husband promised away your office does make you ask tense follow-up questions. It is 1 room in a 3-bedroom house. 1 room you don't own. His face changed. Not much, but enough. I had never used ownership against him. I had bought the bungalow 14 months before we married, when he was still pouring everything he earned into the catering company. I had chosen it with him, renovated it with him, and called it ours so consistently that the legal distinction had become impolite to mention. Darlene stepped closer to him. I told you this would happen. He looked at her. Don't. She likes you dependent. That's why nothing is in your name. The catering company is in his name, I said, with loans attached. Loans I've been helping him pay. Eric's head snapped toward me. Not now. When would you prefer? Before or after your mother installs an awning through the roof I paid for? Darlene opened the front door. Wind pushed damp air into the hall. I won't stay where I'm resented, she said. You're not staying here at all. She waited for Eric to contradict me. He didn't. But he didn't agree either. Darlene left, pulling the door shut with a force that rattled the little window in its frame. Eric stood with his hand on the knob. I could see his reflection in the dark glass, bent slightly as though there were weight across his shoulders. I wanted him to turn around and become the man I had believed was standing there all evening. Instead, he said, you embarrassed her. The sentence was so small compared with everything around it that it took me a moment to understand. She called me a freeloader. She thought I paid for the roof. Why? He kept looking through the window. Eric, why did your mother think you paid for my roof? His reflection closed its eyes. Because, he said, I told her I did. I stared at the back of his shirt. The rain made branching tracks down the glass above his reflection. A month earlier, I had stood on that same spot while he pressed his palm to the ceiling and promised the faint brown stain was old. He had known nothing about roofing, but he'd climbed into the attic with a flashlight because I was afraid to look. How much did you tell her you paid? Eric turned around. I don't know. That's not a number. I didn't give her a number. So you let her invent one. I said I handled the roof. You handled it by asking whether we could postpone replacing it. He flinched. My company had just lost the Rosenthal contract. I know. That's why I paid. I never asked you to. You didn't have to. Water was coming through the bedroom ceiling. He walked into the kitchen and began stacking plates that were already stacked. She was giving me a hard time about the business. She said I dragged you into a money pit, that I wasn't taking care of my wife. So I told her I had the roof handled. And then? There was no then. There had to be. At some point, handled became, I paid $42,000, and then it became, Naomi is living off me. I didn't say that. You laughed when she did. He picked up a stack of plates, realized he had nowhere to take them, and put them down again. It was one of the things I loved about him, or had loved without examining too closely. Eric could make almost any room feel easy. When a bartender failed to show, Eric put on an apron. When a client changed a menu 2 hours before service, he said, "Great, now we're interesting." He could absorb panic and return charm, but with Darlene, he absorbed shame and handed it to me. I shouldn't have laughed, he said. No. I froze. You raised your glass. Okay, Naomi. No, show me the freeze. Was it before or after you told me to be grateful? He shoved his hands into his pockets. What do you want me to say? I want you to say why you submitted a request to put your mother on my warranty. I didn't submit it. I called. The letter says, requested change. They emailed a form after I called. And I filled out part of it. I waited. I didn't sign your name if that's what you're thinking. I wasn't, but thank you for introducing the possibility. They wanted the owner's authorization. I figured they'd contact you. You figured a roofing company would tell me before you did. He pulled out a chair and sat. Party debris surrounded him. Lipstick on abandoned glasses, cocktail picks, a folded napkin with a wet ring darkening its center. He looked less like an executive in the blue shirt now. He looked tired and frightened and frustratingly familiar. Mom's place has gotten bad, he said. The landlord keeps raising rent and ignoring repairs. There's mold in the bathroom. The heater knocks all night. She didn't want to tell you because she knew you'd make it into a financial analysis. I would have helped her find another apartment. She can't qualify for anything decent on her pension. So you offered her my office, our spare bedroom. It hasn't been a spare bedroom since I started working there. You have 3 desks in this house. One is a dining table and one is where you leave catering receipts. I said 6 weeks. She said forever with extra steps. I can manage her. I looked at the glasses, the plates, the envelope under the silver key. That seems to be going beautifully. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. What was I supposed to do? Tell my mother to sleep somewhere with mold while we have all this space? You were supposed to talk to your wife. And if you said no, then you would have had your answer. That's easy when it isn't your mother. There was the part he believed was noble. Underneath the lying and the vanity, he did love her. Darlene had worked double shifts at a hotel laundry after Eric's father left. She had turned thrift store jackets inside out and resewn the lining so he could wear them to interviews. Every sacrifice had become a currency. Neither of them knew how to stop spending. I sat across from him. Did you promise her she could live here before or after she gave notice? His jaw moved. Eric. Before. How long before? 3 weeks. The roofers had finished 3 weeks ago. I picked up the silver key. How many copies? That's the only one. Did you make it? Mom did. From whose key? Mine. You gave her your key long enough to copy it. She was feeding the sourdough starter while we were in Asheville. The starter had died while we were in Asheville. Darlene said the kitchen had been too cold. Get this back to her tomorrow, I said. Tell her the move isn't happening. He sat straighter. We need to decide that together. We did. You decided yes without me. I'm deciding no without you. That isn't how marriage works. I looked at him until he heard himself. He stood. I'm sleeping downstairs. Your choice. You don't have to sound so pleased. I don't sound pleased. You sound like you're running a meeting. I'm trying very hard not to sound like anything else. He took a blanket from the hall closet and shut himself in the den. 10 minutes later, I heard the television murmur. A studio audience laughed through the wall. Upstairs, the glass room smelled faintly of Darlene's perfume. I found the curtain swatches tucked beneath a stack of project files. Cream linen, gray linen, a blue pattern she had called too youthful for her apartment. Pencil marks crossed the wall beside the closet at 34, 52, and 70 inches. I rubbed one with my thumb. It blurred, but didn't disappear. On the floor inside the closet, my archive boxes had been shifted to one side. An empty rectangle in the dust showed where something had been removed. I opened the upstairs file cabinet. The top drawer held household manuals and paint cards. The second held Eric's catering folders, though I kept telling him to take them to the rented kitchen. In the third, beneath a folder labeled Small Wares, I found a furniture brochure with 3 circles in Darlene's handwriting: bed, dresser, reclining chair. The chair was wider than the studio door. I sat at my desk until after 2, not working. Below me, the television went silent. Pipes ticked in the walls. Rain rolled down the glass in silver ropes, and every few minutes a gust pushed water against a seam hard enough to make me glance up. At 7, Eric came upstairs carrying coffee. He set my mug on a coaster without speaking. Milk, no sugar. He'd remembered that every morning for 8 years. Mom's coming at 9, he said. My hand stopped over the keyboard. Why? To apologize. Did you tell her she can't move in? I told her we all needed to talk. That wasn't my question. He leaned against the desk. Can you please meet me halfway? Halfway to someone moving into my office? Halfway to not blowing up our marriage over one bad night. I turned the mug slowly between my palms. The bad night is when I found out. He looked away. The thing itself took weeks, I said. At 9:15, Darlene arrived with a cardboard tray of coffee and a white bakery box tied in string. I watched from the landing as she entered the door code. The keypad flashed red. She tried again. Eric opened the door before she could knock. Did you change it? He asked me. I disabled guest codes. You could have told me. You have a key. Darlene walked past him, holding the bakery box in front of her. I brought almond croissants. I'm allergic to almonds, I said. Her shoulders lowered by half an inch. They had chocolate, too. The box contained 4 almond croissants. We sat at the dining table. Eric took the chair between us and ate one out of obligation. Flakes landed on the blue shirt he had worn overnight. Darlene folded her hands. I am sorry you felt humiliated. I was humiliated. I just apologized. You apologized for my reaction. She glanced at Eric. He pretended to examine the pastry. All right, she said. I'm sorry I used that word. And for saying Eric provided the house. He told me he did. I said I handled the roof, Eric muttered. Darlene turned on him. You said you paid the contractor. I didn't say those exact words. You said, it's taken care of. I covered it. I meant as a household. You told me her money was tied up in this little consulting experiment. I felt something inside me go very still. Eric wiped his fingers on a napkin. That's not what I said. It absolutely is. Stop helping." Darlene's expression sharpened. "You let me look like a fool last night." "I let you?" "Both of you did, opening that ridiculous receipt in front of everyone." "The receipt was addressed to me," I said. "You were the only one trying to hide it." She pressed her lips together and rearranged the coffee lids in the cardboard tray. I should not have reached for it. That surprised me enough that I said nothing. "I panicked," she continued. "I thought it was the approval for the awning. There is no approval. I know that now. No, there won't be one later either." Eric exhaled. Darlene stared at the table. "The upstairs room is not available," I said. "Not for 6 weeks. Not permanently. Eric had no right to promise it." Darlene's fingers moved to the string on the bakery box. She wound it around 2 knuckles until the skin whitened. "My lease ends October 31st. Then we have time to help you find another place. What I can afford isn't a place you would enter without making that face." "What face?" "The one you make when the grout is dirty." I almost smiled. "That's fair." She looked up, caught off guard. "I'll help you look," I said. "I'll review the lease. I'll even help with a deposit if we agree on the amount first, but you aren't moving in." Eric sat back as if I had broken a rule he hadn't known how to state. Darlene loosened the string. "And if there is nothing?" "Then we discuss options. We don't arrive with furniture." "This is my son's home, too." "It's his home. That doesn't make it his property to give away." Eric pushed his chair back. "There it is again." "Yes," I said. "There it is." Darlene stood, gathering the coffee tray. "Keep your money. I'd rather live in my car." She had never owned a car. Eric followed her to the door. I stayed at the table, breathing through the sweet, oily almond smell. Before leaving, Darlene slipped something from her purse into his hand. He closed his fingers over it. I waited until the door shut. "What did she give you?" He opened his hand. The silver key lay across his palm, the green polish facing up. "I told you I'd get it back." I should have felt relief. Instead, I wondered why she had brought it after insisting she didn't know her code had been disabled. At 10, I took my laptop into the den and opened the spreadsheet I used to track Eric's business. Vendor renewals, equipment payments, insurance dates, quarterly filings, cells colored red, yellow, and green. I had built it when his former office manager quit and maintained it because the business was always one late invoice from a cash flow problem. Eric stood in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Making you a handoff." "For what?" "Everything I manage for Calder Table." His mouth opened, then closed. I printed 2 pages and set them beside his laptop. The refrigeration lease drafts Friday. The food service permit renewal is due next week. Malcolm has access to the vendor portal, but he'll need the password reset. Your equipment loan comes out of our household account on the 1st. I'm stopping my contribution after this month. You're punishing me. I'm separating my help from your entitlement to it. That sounds like something Celia would say. Celia thinks I'm underbilling. I mean the corporate language. It's cold. The warm version was me doing it for free. He picked up the pages. "This company pays our bills. Your company pays part of the utilities and groceries. I put money into this house. You do. I'm not pretending you don't." His face softened, just slightly. "Then don't do this." For a moment, I wanted to take the papers back. I wanted coffee delivered to my desk, his feet finding mine under the covers, the version of us in which bad nights became stories we told with better endings. Then he said, "Mom needs to see that we're united." I released the pages. "Handle your permit," I said. By late afternoon, I had completed almost none of my own work. My phone buzzed with 2 messages from Darlene containing listings, both well above the budget she had given me. A third showed a furnished room 20 minutes away. I was typing a neutral reply when I heard the side door open. Darlene called from downstairs. "Eric." I found her in the mudroom holding 2 garment bags. 3 cardboard boxes sat behind her on the wet tile. She looked at me, then at the key in her hand. A silver key, green polish. For once, neither of us pretended to misunderstand. "I thought that was the only copy," I said. Darlene tightened her grip on the garment bags. Behind her, rain blew through the open door. "Eric thought so too," she said. "Put the garment bags down," I said. "They'll crease." "Then hold them." Water spotted the shoulders of Darlene's coat. One of the cardboard boxes had softened at the bottom, leaving a brown crescent on the tile. DP was written on its side in the same block lettering as the boxes behind our lawnmower. "I'm not moving in today," she said. "These are winter clothes. My apartment smells like bleach because the landlord finally sent someone to treat the bathroom. So take them back to your car. I came in a cab. Then call another one." Her chin trembled. Darlene had several kinds of trembling. This was the angry one, too regular to be fear. "I have nowhere clean to put these. You have a storage unit. Eric told you?" "I found the boxes in the garage." Her gaze flicked toward the interior door. "He said I could store a few things. Before or after I said no. That garage is half empty. That isn't an answer." She lowered the garment bags onto the bench despite my instruction. "You enjoy making people ask. And you enjoy treating silence like permission." I held out my hand. "The key. It's for emergencies. You entering with luggage is the emergency." She actually smiled. That was good. Key. The smile disappeared. "If Eric wants it back, he can ask me." "He already thought you returned it." "I had two made. You people lose things." "Did you tell him?" "I'm telling you." I stepped between her and the kitchen. Darlene was 5 inches shorter than I was, but she had the peculiar physical certainty of someone who had never expected a doorway to remain closed to her. She studied my face, then dropped the key into my palm. "You have become very hard," she said. "I'm getting accurate." I put the garment bags and boxes on the covered porch and called her a cab. While we waited, she stood beneath the eave with her purse tucked under one arm and refused to look at me. The gutter overflowed at the corner, sending a narrow sheet of water onto the hydrangeas. "Eric used to hate rain," she said. I leaned against the doorframe. Our old place had a metal awning outside his room. Every storm, it sounded like someone throwing gravel. He'd come into my bed and kick me all night. She looked up at the new shingles. "That roof probably cost more than I made in 3 years." It did. "You could have said that last night. You could have asked before calling me a freeloader." A gray sedan stopped at the curb. Darlene lifted one garment bag, then the other. "I believed my son," she said. So did I. She went down the steps without replying. The locksmith arrived before Eric did. I had the side door cylinder changed and the keypad reset. I programmed codes for Eric and me, wrote his on a sticky note, then tore it up and texted it instead. The new brass key looked too bright beside mine in the blue bowl. Eric found the receipt from the locksmith on the counter. "You changed the lock?" Darlene had another copy. He looked toward the mudroom. She came back with boxes. I didn't tell her to do that. "She said you let her store things in the garage. In August, before any of this." "Any of this was already happening in August, I just didn't know." He dragged a hand through his hair. "Where are the boxes?" "On her way home." "You sent her back in the rain?" "I put her in a cab." "That isn't what I asked." "No, but it's the accurate version." He picked up his new key from the bowl. "You keep saying that word like you're the only person allowed to define reality. You told your mother you paid for the roof, and you're going to use that every time I open my mouth now?" "No. Sometimes I'll use the secret move." He flinched again, and I hated the small satisfaction it gave me. At dinner, we ate leftover mushrooms standing at opposite ends of the kitchen. Eric had added too much lemon when he made them for the party, but overnight the flavor had mellowed. He warmed mine in a skillet because he knew I hated the microwave texture. I wondered how a person could be thoughtful in increments and treacherous in architecture. "What if she really can't find a place?" he asked. "Then we look at extended stay rentals. She can't afford one. We can help for a limited period. That would cost more than letting her use a room we already have. Money isn't the only cost. He shut off the burner. She isn't a stranger. I know exactly who she is, and I know she's difficult. Difficult is bringing almond croissants to someone with an almond allergy. Planning to occupy her office is something else. She forgot the allergy. She served almond cake at our wedding. Despite himself, Eric laughed. It lasted half a second. The sound struck the room like a match, illuminating the version of us I still wanted. Then he looked ashamed for laughing at his mother, and it went dark again. "I'll find her somewhere," he said. "Good. But if we can't, no." He set the spatula down. "You're not even considering it." I considered it when I bought a 3-bedroom house. I considered a guest room, an office, a gym, even that ridiculous wine closet you wanted. I did not consider becoming the final obstacle in a plan everyone else had approved. You're making me choose. You chose when you promised. The next morning, his paycheck did not arrive in the household account. I noticed because the transfer alert never appeared. When I asked, Eric said he had redirected it to his business checking, so the refrigeration lease wouldn't bounce. "You have a business account for business expenses," I said. "It's empty until 2 clients pay." "Then talk to Malcolm about a capital contribution." "He doesn't have it. Neither do I. You have savings. That's not the same as having money available for Calder table." He stared at the spreadsheet printout I had left beside his laptop. "I'm trying to keep 6 people working, and I'm trying to stop being the 7th person who works for free." He moved his mug into the sink without rinsing it. It was a petty gesture by Eric's standards. Usually he washed the mug and wiped the sink afterward, as if hoping stainless steel might compliment him. By noon, Malcolm called. "I have a question that is not personal," he said. That sounds ominous. "The city portal says our food service renewal is incomplete. Eric says you submitted it." I gave him a handoff sheet. "The login needs to be reset to your email." There was a pause filled by kitchen noise, metal striking metal. "So you didn't submit it?" "No." "Right. That would be the part that wasn't personal." "Malcolm, I'm not trying to hurt the company." "I know. I also know we built a business assuming Eric had twice as many hours in a day as he actually has. That landed softly and stayed." "I can send you the contact name at the city," I said. "After that, it's yours." "I'd appreciate it. And change the account recovery number. It's mine." He sighed. "Anything else you secretly do?" "Your insurance audit is in December." "Of course it is." I sent the contact, then removed myself from the vendor portal. My finger hovered over the confirmation button longer than it should have. The first piece of Darlene's mail arrived 2 days later. It was a catalog addressed to her at our house. The next day brought an insurance statement, then a letter from her bank. Eric claimed not to know anything about it. I wrote "not at this address" and put each item back in the mailbox. Darlene sent me a photograph of the bank envelope in my handwriting. "That's important," she wrote. "Then update your address. I was told this was my address. It isn't." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. "We will see." I printed the exchange and placed it with the warranty packet in the locking drawer. That afternoon, I toured 2 apartments for her anyway. The first smelled like fried onions but had clean grout and a landlord who answered the phone. The second was smaller, brighter, and 4 blocks from a grocery store. I took photographs, calculated the deposit, and sent Darlene a comparison. She rejected both within 6 minutes. The first was depressing. The second faced north. When I showed Eric, he scrolled through the photos. "That kitchen is tiny. She does not cook. She makes soup. She heats soup." He zoomed in on a bathroom. No grab bar. She doesn't need a grab bar. She might someday. Then she can install one with the owner's permission, which is an exciting system I recommend. He handed back my phone. "You went there ready to hate everything." "I went there with a tape measure. That's your version of hating everything." The storm came that Friday. Wind rattled the glass room while I reviewed a hospital renovation estimate. At 4:30, a cold drop struck the back of my hand. I looked up. A bead of water clung to the ceiling seam above my desk. Another formed beside it, swelled, and fell onto the keyboard. I yanked the laptop away. Water began tracking down the wall straight through Darlene's pencil marks. "Eric!" He ran upstairs. The moment he saw the ceiling, all the fight left his face. "Get the blue bowl," I said. He stared at me. "The bowl, Eric." He brought it from the entry table and set it beneath the leak. Our keys landed on the desk with a dull clatter. Water tapped the ceramic bottom, slowly at first, then fast enough to sound like nervous fingers. I called the roofing company. The dispatcher promised an emergency crew, but wind had knocked branches across 3 neighborhoods and their trucks were backed up. "Is there an active warranty?" she asked. "Yes." A silence followed while she read the account. "Miss Calder, I need to flag that we have photographs of an unauthorized roof penetration over the east addition." "What penetration?" "Mounting brackets." The inspector noted them during the closeout visit. I looked at Eric. He had gone pale. "What kind of mounting brackets?" "They appear to be for an awning frame, possibly a satellite mount." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "Those were never approved." "That may complicate coverage in the affected section. The crew will have to determine the entry point." After I hung up, Eric reached for the bowl and shifted it 2 inches to catch a new drip. "When?" I asked. He crouched, watching the water. "When did you put holes in my roof?" "I didn't." "Then who did?" "Mom had a handyman look at the room." "Look at it." I told him to stop after he started. "How many holes?" "I don't know." "You were here?" He rubbed his wet fingers against his pants. I helped him carry the brackets up. A gust drove rain against the glass. Water darkened the ceiling in a widening oval. The emergency crew arrived after 7 and stretched a tarp over the east section. Because the damage might be excluded from the warranty, I had to authorize a $2,400 emergency charge before they climbed the ladder. Darlene came while the crew was still working. Eric had called her. She stood in my studio, looking from the stained ceiling to the blue bowl filling beneath it. "I can pay for the repair," she said. "With what?" Eric asked. "I have some money set aside." "For a deposit," I said, "for whatever becomes necessary." The sentence had been prepared. I could hear the rehearsal in it. She removed a folded document from her purse and placed it on my desk. It was a basic occupancy agreement printed from the internet. 6 months with automatic renewal. The monthly amount was less than half the apartment we had toured. "You brought this before you saw the leak," I said. Darlene smoothed the crease with her thumb. "I knew we needed a practical solution. You damaged the roof. The handyman made a mistake. On work you had no permission to order. I relied on Eric." Eric stood beside the bowl, rainwater ticking between his shoes. Darlene pushed the agreement toward me. "Let me live here, and I'll cover whatever the warranty doesn't." I looked at my husband. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Then he said, "Maybe we should take it." "Take what?" I asked. Eric nodded toward the agreement. "The help." Darlene's face relaxed so quickly I knew she had expected him to say it. "You mean the money?" I said. "For the repair," he replied. "We don't know what this is going to cost." "We know what it costs. 6 months in my office, automatic renewal, and your mother gets to call the damage she caused rent." "That's not what I'm doing," Darlene said. I lifted the agreement. "You printed terms." "So there would be no confusion." "There's no confusion now." I folded the pages along their existing crease and handed them back. The roofing crew moved across the tarp overhead. Each footstep made the glass tremble. The foreman had placed a second bucket against the wall, but water still found the blue bowl. Our keys lay scattered across my desk beside my laptop. Darlene tucked the agreement into her purse. "If you refuse my help, you cannot blame me when the bill comes. You offered help with a lock attached. You changed the locks first, to keep you from entering with luggage. I had winter coats. You had a 6-month occupancy agreement." Eric crouched and lifted the bowl. Water sloshed near the chipped rim. "Can we stop?" he said. "Both of you?" He carried the bowl to the bathroom and emptied it. When he returned, Darlene was standing close to the door, her arms crossed over her coat. "You should go," I told her. She looked at Eric. He stared at the damp carpet. "I'll call you tomorrow." "About what?" "Mom, about what?" Her voice changed. It lost its careful, injured quality. "I have 9 days left in my apartment." "And 2 listings you rejected," I said. "One smelled like onions." "I don't like onions. You wouldn't be leasing the hallway." Eric put the bowl back under the drip. I said I'd call. Darlene collected her purse. At the doorway, she paused beside him and touched his cheek. The gesture was tender enough to make me feel like an intruder in my own room. "You tried," she said. After she left, Eric and I listened to the roofers secure the final edge of the tarp. "You told her she could move in," I said. He lowered himself onto the desk chair. "I was trying to keep the situation from getting worse. You keep describing decisions as weather. What does that mean?" "The mold happened. Her lease ended. The brackets appeared. You're always standing nearby when disaster strikes, but somehow you never touched anything. That's unfair. You carried the brackets. I didn't drill the holes. You brought the metal to the man holding the drill. I told him Mom hadn't gotten permission yet. He said he was only measuring. And when he started, I stopped him." "After how many?" Eric looked up at the wet ceiling. 4, maybe. My laugh came out rough. "You watched 4 holes go into a new roof before the word stop reached your mouth?" "I didn't know he'd broken the membrane. You didn't want to know." The crew foreman appeared in the doorway. Rain shone on his shaved head, and black sealant marked both gloves. "Tarp's secure," he said. "It'll get you through the weekend. Don't use this room if the wind gets above 40. We'll send someone Monday to open the affected section." "Can you tell what failed?" I asked. "Water's entering near the brackets and traveling along a rafter. Where it exits isn't always where it gets in." He looked at Eric. "Those brackets should never have been installed over a membrane roof." "They weren't installed," Eric said. "The job wasn't completed." The foreman glanced up again. "The roof does not care whether the awning got finished." I nearly smiled. He took photographs of the stain, the bowl, and the wall, then handed me a work authorization. Under billable party, my name had been printed automatically. "I'm signing for emergency stabilization only," I said. "That's right. Office will review the original installation photos Monday." "Thank you." Eric followed him downstairs. I remained under the glass, watching water collect and fall. When he came back, I had opened a blank document. "What are you writing?" "What I need if we're staying married." He stood across the desk from me. "Counseling," I said. "A complete list of every business and personal expense coming from our household account. Your mother does not move in, receive mail here, get a key, or arrange work on the house. You correct the story about the roof. To everyone. To the same group you were willing to mislead. I didn't stand up and make a speech. No, you just let your mother make one for you." He rubbed his jaw. "And if I agree, then we try. And if I don't?" I looked at the spreading stain above him. "Then we stop pretending this marriage protects both of us." He sat without being invited. For once, he had no sentence ready to make the room easier. "I love you," he said. "I know." You could say it back. I could. His eyes reddened. He turned his face toward the windows, where the tarp had turned daylight the color of deep water. What if counseling doesn't fix it? Then at least we fail honestly. He gave a broken little laugh. "You always did know how to sell a project. I'm not selling this one." On Monday morning, Luis Ortega, the foreman who had supervised the original roof installation, came with a tablet and a younger technician carrying moisture equipment. Luis remembered me because I had asked for the brand and lot number of every material on the original estimate. "You made me write 6 extra pages," he said. "You charged me for 7. I respected the commitment. He climbed onto the East Addition while the technician mapped moisture inside. Eric stayed home, though he spent most of the inspection answering business calls from the kitchen. The restaurant kitchen Calder table rented had suspended their access because the permit renewal had lapsed. Malcolm found temporary prep space, but it cost more and was available only overnight. I heard Eric say, "I know whose responsibility it is," then glanced toward me through the doorway. 20 minutes later, Malcolm arrived with 2 plastic bins of invoices. "I need signatures," he said. Eric took him into the dining room. Their voices remained low until Malcolm said, "She gave us the dates. She ran compliance. She told us she was stopping. After doing it for 3 years. That's the part where you say thank you, not the part where you build a defense." Silence followed. Malcolm left without coming upstairs. As he reached the front door, he set a new blue folder beside Eric's laptop. On the cover, he had written, "Things we are now adult enough to track ourselves." Eric stared at it for a long time. Luis came down from the roof shortly before noon and showed us the photographs. 4 punctures formed an uneven line above the glass room. The fasteners were wrong, the flashing non-existent, and 1 bracket had been removed after tearing the membrane. "The good news," he said, zooming in, "our field seams are sound. Your warranty remains active everywhere except this altered section. We can isolate and replace the damaged area." "How much?" I asked. He gave me an estimate that made the emergency tarp look cheap but did not threaten the rest of my savings. "And the interior?" "Drywall and paint after the framing dries. Your glass is fine." I sat on the edge of my desk. My knees had gone weak from preparing for worse. Luis swiped to another image. "We contacted the man whose company sticker was on a bracket. He remembers the job. Says he was told the homeowner approved it." I didn't. I told him that. He admitted he never verified. He's agreed to pay our repair invoice directly if you release him from the interior cosmetic work. I'd get that in writing before we begin. That seems fair. It's cheaper than his insurance deductible. Not generosity. Eric folded his arms. "So we're covered." The original receipt and installation record made it very simple to separate our work from his, Luis said. Without those, everybody would be arguing about whose hole was whose. My roof receipt. The paperwork Eric had wanted hidden at the party was now the reason his mother's damage could not be laid at my feet. After Luis left, Eric sent 1 message to the housewarming group. He showed it to me before pressing send. "I let my mother and all of you believe I paid for our roof and carried the financial weight of this house." That was false. Naomi purchased the house before we married and paid the full roofing bill. She has also contributed substantial unpaid work and money to my business. I laughed at something humiliating because correcting it would have exposed my own lie. "I am sorry." He looked sick when the replies began arriving. I didn't ask to read them. "Is that enough?" he asked. "It's true. That isn't what I asked." "I don't know yet." He started counseling with me that Thursday. In the first session, he explained Darlene so beautifully that the counselor finally interrupted him. "I understand your mother's fear," she said. "Tell me about your wife's." Eric looked at me as though it had not occurred to him that I had one. For several days, he tried. He moved his business records out of the upstairs file cabinet. He and Malcolm created a payment schedule for the equipment loan. He restored his household transfer, reduced to an amount that left the business able to breathe. He toured an apartment with Darlene and refused to criticize the kitchen. Then Darlene gave him the date of her move. She already booked a truck, he told me. To which address? He stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing his mug. She says she paid for a month of storage. That wasn't my question. She's panicking. Cancel the truck. It's her truck. Tell her she cannot bring it here. I have. The answer came too fast. The repaired roof held through 2 more rains. The blue bowl returned to the entry table, our keys resting together again. I wanted that to mean more than it did. On October 31st, a moving truck backed into our driveway at 8 in the morning. The beeping pulled me from my desk. Through the glass wall, I watched two movers lift the rear door. Inside were Darlene's sofa, her dresser, and a reclining chair wider than the studio door. Eric came upstairs while I was putting on my shoes. I didn't know she'd do this. Did you tell her not to? I told her it wasn't settled. That means you told her to try. I said we were working on it. There was nothing to work on. Outside, Darlene directed a mover toward the porch. She had dressed for the occasion in cream slacks and a red raincoat, though the sky was clear. I picked up the warranty packet and the folder containing her returned mail, the locksmith receipt, and the unsigned occupancy agreement. "What are those for?" Eric asked. "Accuracy." At the front door, Darlene smiled as if arriving for brunch. "The storage unit fell through," she said. One mover balanced a lamp against his shoulder. "Ma'am, where do you want the first pieces?" "Nowhere," I said. "There is no authorized move into this house." Darlene took the folded agreement from her purse. "My son lives here and invited me. That agreement is unsigned." The mover looked at Eric. "Sir?" Eric stood behind me. Darlene's smile thinned. "Tell them." I turned to him. "If you bring her belongings through this door, we separate. Not as a threat, as the next fact." His mouth opened. Darlene stepped closer. "I gave up my apartment because of your promise." "I know, Mom. I have nowhere to go." "I found you 3 places," I said. "You rejected them. Stay out of this." "You brought a truck to my driveway." She turned back to Eric. "You said once Naomi calmed down, she'd understand." The hurt on his face was real. So was the calculation behind it. He was searching for a sentence that would keep his mother, his marriage, and his idea of himself without requiring him to choose among them. "Just let her stay tonight," he said to me. The last hope I had been protecting became quiet. I handed the moving company supervisor the unsigned agreement and showed him the property information attached to the roofing file. "I do not consent to delivery or occupancy. You can leave the items on the truck or take them wherever Ms. Pierce directs, but you cannot bring them inside." He read enough to become uncomfortable. "We don't unload into a disputed residence." Darlene's face hardened. "Eric?" He looked at me, then at the truck. "I'll go with her," he said. He packed 2 suitcases while Darlene redirected the movers to a storage facility and booked a furnished rental from her phone. She could afford 6 weeks there with the deposit money she had withheld for the roof bargain. Eric took the blue folder Malcolm made and left his house key in the chipped bowl. Through mediation, we agreed on his move-out date, the division of household expenses, and his responsibility for the business debt. He rented a 1-bedroom apartment in the same complex as Darlene's short-term unit. She found another lease before winter in a clean building with a small north-facing kitchen. The day the separation agreement was signed, Eric returned for the last box from the garage. He stood by the entry table, turning his key between his fingers. "I kept thinking home was the place where nobody made me disappoint her," he said. I waited. "I didn't notice that meant disappointing you over and over." He placed the key in the blue bowl. It landed beside mine with the old ceramic scrape. For a moment, both keys rested there as they had for years. I picked his up and held it out. He accepted it, closed his hand around it, and left. That evening, rain moved over the neighborhood. It struck the repaired roof, ran into the copper gutter, and passed cleanly beyond the glass room where I worked. Downstairs, my key lay alone in the chipped blue bowl.